Hi, and welcome to this live reading from A Spot of Earl's Sleigh by Aubrey, Elle. And this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. December was inarguably the busiest month of the year, but I couldn't imagine delaying this move a single day. I was past due relocating as it was. With every mile I drove my 17-year-old daughter further from her hometown, another knot of tension seemed to relax from my shoulders. "You're doing it again," Ella lectured from the passenger seat, not even glancing up from her phone. Caught, I paused mid-roll and rotating my shoulders. Peeved at her mothering me, I refrained from letting her catty tone distract me. Eyes on the road and traffic wasn't that bad. I sighed and slumped into the driver's seat. Heaven forbid she catch me not looking forward. She had yet to gain the desire for her driver's license, but oh my, she was an expert at backseat driving. "Haven't had time for yoga lately," I admitted, while she was nagging me, noticing my visible display of tension as I drove us to this new beginning in the small rural town of Fayette. I like to think she pointed out my flaws out of love and maybe worry for me, not scolding. "Uh-huh." She flicked her long brown hair back as she swiveled in her seat to directly face my profile. "But why are you so tense? Skipping yoga or not, I would think you'd be happier by now." She gifted me her signature scoff before adding, "I mean, one of us should be giddy about with all these life-altering changes." Okay. This time it wasn't love, worry, or scolding, just another offering of her scorn. Lucky me. I pulled my lips into my mouth, clamping down on them to keep my honesty in. Depending on the moon cycle, the grace of karma, and who knows, the weather, her attitude would either simmer and she'd get over it, or I was in for a long earful. Bottom line, I had no control over her mood swings. I almost winced thinking back to all those times I'd given my mother a hard time during my adolescence. What goes around comes around, Naomi. Regardless, I was convinced it was better not to reply to her bait. "The high school doesn't even have a debate team, Mom." I tilted my head to the side, spotting the Welcome to Fayette sign as sped by. "Pretty sure you could start up your own, Elle. Open your mouth and whatever someone replies will be a debate." "Are you trying to say I'm antagonistic?" she retorted. "That'd be a magnanimous way of putting it." She raised her arms, giving me jazz hands as she rolled her eyes. "Ooh, big word, Mom." "All the better to charm you." But seriously, I cut in as I obeyed the navigation screen ordering me to turn left. "We've gone over this. The fact Fayette High School lacks a debate team is a blow to you. I know this, and I'm sorry about it, but it's not something I can control." She crossed her arms and slumped, facing forward again. "You can control us moving here." "No, I can't, and you know it." Snow fell faster than the fluffy light flurries we'd been traveling through, almost as though the precipitation matched my daughter's ire. I flicked the wipers to sweep across the windshield faster. "Right?" No reply. Since September, we had discussed this thoroughly, but I guessed Ella hadn't achieved an adult-like capacity to accept it yet. My only hope was that one day she would stop bemoaning it. After a patient-seeking sigh, I reminded her, "We're moving here because my Uncle Fred left me his house. In other words, it was the only place we'd be able to afford as I embraced my newly divorced lifestyle and finances." She huffed, looking out her window. Yep, she was aware. "And we're moving because neither of us could tolerate living in Swenton anymore. Not with the way her father was handling the end of our marriage." "But something you can control is making a debate team at your new school," I suggested. "Right?" She remained quiet. "Why worry or complain about what you can't control and focus on what you can?" She tacked a groan to the end of it. "Yes, I have heard that before. Thank you very much." As she ran her fingers through her hair, fluffing it up stylishly to give it some lift, she slanted her shoulder to press it against the window. "I guess I can be happy about moving here for one reason." "Oh, praise be. One reason? Was that optimism blooming now?" "Yeah, what's that?" "Not living in Swenton means you won't go to therapy with Dad anymore." Hallelujah. I hadn't enjoyed a single second of that so-called marriage counseling, but it was handy for a third party to confirm staying married was a lost hope. Almost like verification of, "I told you so," to my ex and my ex-mother-in-law. Which means I shouldn't have to put up with you regurgitating little mantras like that all the time. I grinned, catching her smirk in my peripheral vision. Like only concern yourself with what you can control? I nodded. Yeah, your dad hated when I said that too. I'd only parroted what the counselor advised. If he couldn't control his desire to cheat on me, then I couldn't control my inability to love him anymore. I wondered if I ever had. Good grief and good riddance. Ella's giggle suggested her annoyance with me had cooled, and I reached over to pat her hand. It'll get better. You know this isn't for good. She shot me a look of alarm, pencil thin at brows arching high. You mean we might go back to Swinton someday? Heck no. I mean, we're moving here for now. As the words left my lips, I watched the scenery blur by. This main street was quaint and cutesy in its own way, but it lacked the bustle and energy of the bigger small town we'd left. Shops and a cafe stood between the usual establishments. Post office, bank, a mom-and-pop shoe store, and a couple of dinky little bars. In 1 minute, we traversed the bulk of Fayette, and it was slightly underwhelming. Dare I think it boring. It wasn't moving us here blindly. I'd looked it up. Fayette didn't have much fame to claim. The last edition of their local newspaper bragged about a teacher who competed in all 5Ks for charity. Some commercial bakery had gone through yet another buyout. Dry cleaner had won an award for something, entrepreneurship excellence. A lady was lucky winning the state lotto. Usual small town news. Scrolling on social media didn't give me the impression Fayette would be an unwise choice for a new start in life. Some teen Vargas somebody had gotten another underage DUI. Worrisome, but Ella didn't gravitate to bad boys or boys at all yet. A woman with an ID picture of cats on her shoulders complained about how the town should clear snow off all residential sidewalks and only use pet-safe ice melts. I paused, rereading a report from the police chief about a string of thefts from older citizens' homes. That did sound worrisome, but I hoped our new house would be in a safe end of town. Thefts could happen anywhere. But that doesn't mean we can't move somewhere else later as we see fit. More like when your bank account sees fit, Ella sassed. I shrugged, seeing no reason to be ashamed of the truth. As perceptive as Ella was, it was nothing to hide from her. She was witness to her father sabotaging my attempts of employment, criticizing my desire for even a part-time job. He'd often accused me of belittling the family name, that wanting to work would render us too middle class and thus make a mockery of him. He was loaded, but I saw through his manipulative words at the divorce proceedings. If I fought for adequate child support and alimony, he'd demand a ridiculous mishmash of shared custody. When I said I didn't want his money, he'd quickly changed his tune to get lost. We'd settled on the bare minimum he should have paid, but it was a teeny savings that gave me the confidence to believe Ella and I could start a new life here. And that shouldn't be long. Our finances won't stay so pathetic. I furrowed my brow. Hey, there are plenty of people with less in the world. Be grateful. I am. I'm grateful. I've got you. Aw, I smiled at her. And I've got you. Our finances won't be this limited for long, just until paychecks come in. From what job? She challenged. I'm sure I'll find something. Where? Ella waved her hand at the window. There's nothing here. We'd already driven through the main part of town, and according to the navigation, we were minutes from our new home. Overall, from what we'd seen so far, Fayette didn't strike me as a hopping, bustling place that might be overflowing with job vacancies. I'll find something somewhere, even remote. We'll make it work. This whole place is remote, she said as we passed another farm. Maybe, but it's practically free, somewhere to get our bearings until we find something better. Especially since Uncle Fred left me the house already. Not worrying about a mortgage was a godsend, and how much could utilities be in this little town? There's no social life to enjoy, so I'd be saving there as well. Yeah, but what if this free house is like dilapidated and musty and broken and, she shuddered, you get what you pay for. It hasn't been sitting there empty for too long, I confessed. Uncle Fred was more of a distant relative, but I was pretty sure I'd met him, 20 years ago at my first communion. Him leaving me the house was a surprise, and I suspected he'd only done it so he had no other family to consider. Besides, I said drolly, sneering at the windshield as I turned onto our street, your grandparents insisted on checking out the most recent listing of it, to ensure I wasn't moving you to an inhumane hovel unsuitable for residence. This time it was Ella's turn to pat my thigh in sympathy. I don't know how you ever put up with them, Mom. Oh, it took some practice, all right. With excitement building faster, I pulled into the driveway and set the truck in park. I raised my hand, brandishing it toward the 2-story brick house. But now we're free from those meddling, impossible-to-please relatives. Ta-da! Home, sweet home. Ella scrunched her nose as she stared at the nondescript house. I looked my fill, too, never having seen it aside from a few images on my phone. Wind whistled outside, and the strong current shook the maple tree to the right of the front porch. Bare branches jerked and whipped until the bark cracked. A long length of wood crashed on the front yard, already littered with twigs and sticks. Tall grass and weeds added to the miserable lack of curb appeal. Stuck in clumps of dead grass were flyers and advertisements that had escaped the screen door. You get what you pay for, Ella muttered. And we were getting a handout all right. I couldn't help but wince. At least the house seemed solid. The roof was intact. Windows weren't busted, and the porch wasn't sporting missing handrails. Structurally, it would do. But as far as a sense of welcoming us in, the house inspector said it was livable. Ella shot me a stern look. At what minimum? Well, it'd be up to us to make it homey then. I gently swatted her, more than tired of her attitude after the 9-hour drive. Come on, I didn't raise you to be a whiny brat. Sure hope your dad didn't mold you to be materialistic despite my best efforts. I couldn't deny the comparison. Back in Swinton, we'd lived in a well-maintained, ostentatious mansion, built to impress, not to house a loving family. Ella hadn't wanted for anything, nearly spoiled with any gift or trip she dreamed of. Hey, I'm not whining, she frowned, but I caught a hint of shame in her tone. Just observing? I snorted my sentiments at her observations. Well, we're going to make do with what we have. Okay, we will. You and me together against the world. Rah! She reached for her door handle as I did for mine. It's just an empty, uninviting house. I exited the truck and zipped up my coat. There was no point lying about it. She slammed her door shut and nestled into her coat and scarf, nodding in a new turn of brightness. So the faster we get inside and liven it up, the bet. Another branch fell under the December wind. It busted onto the sidewalk, splintering into smaller sticks and twigs in a mess. Okay, I rounded the truck and draped an arm around Ella's shoulders, pulling her closer to me as I eyed the ancient tree shedding before our eyes. First on the list, find a company to trim that tree. And invest in hard hats. I smiled at Ella. Funny. It can't be windy like this all the time. I was sure the tree was just neglected as the rest of the yard had been before Fred died. Hop back in. I'll pull up to the back door so we can avoid an injury. She didn't need telling twice. We escaped the brutal bite of the wintry wind, climbing into the truck. Started the engine again, biting my lip at the loud groan. A glance to my left showed a curtain flickering back into place from the next house's window. Oh, great. Already being a loud nuisance for the neighbors. I drove further up the drive and turned off the rental truck once more. No tall trees waited in the backyard, and the sidewalk to the back door was clear of the abundance of debris the front had. With a privacy fence sheltering a portion of the lawn back here, the clear path made more sense. Once more, we exited the moving truck, both of us shivering at the contrast from the toasty warmth of the vehicle to the chill brushing at us outside. Hurry, let's get in and turn on the fern. Ella stopped me, though, her hand on my sleeve. A loud clap of wood on wood startled me, and I jumped. She dropped her arm and pointed. The shed stood in the rear corner of the yard, its double doors wide open, waving to and fro in the wind. We should probably close those first, Ella said. Again, the door on the left flung back, and we both jerked and winced at the sound of the wood smacking. Unlike the house, the shed was made of old, once-red, weathered planks. Good idea, before the doors fly off altogether, I agreed. Even though I wasn't sure about staying in Fayette for long, we would be here for now. And letting doors get carried away in the wind to be deposited elsewhere as trash didn't seem like an impressive way to arrive. We wrapped our arms around ourselves, bundled into our coats the best we could as we hurried toward the shed. Wind still whipped at our faces in the 10-yard dash, and my eyes watered while my nose stung from the cold. Brr, I exaggerated as I reached out to grip the edge of the door. Ella braced the opposite door with her foot so it wouldn't fling into her face. But when she pressed her hand against the feeble panels, she couldn't close it completely. Go on, close it, then I can latch this hook to lock them. She shook her head, using both hands to shove the door shut. Weird. For as easily as they were waving open back and forth in the wind, I would have guessed the hinges would go smoothly. I can't, it won't shut. I stepped closer, holding my door so it wouldn't strike me. Huh? As I pulled the thin wood back, opening the entrance, I stumbled. I sucked in a breath of icy air. What? What is it? Ella demanded after my gasp. She nudged closer, but I raised my arm to barricade her from peering inside. Too late. She shrieked, clutching my sleeve as she spotted the lifeless body sprawled near the threshold.